Broadcasting live from the Capital OTB studios, this is Racing Across America with Seth Merrow.
We'd like to thank Woodbine for their sponsorship of this program and some of the other programming and events here at Capital OTB. Woodbine open now through December, featuring great racing, including the Kings Plate coming up in August, Turf Champions Day with the Woodbine Mile in September, and much, much more. Woodbine Racing, great racing north of the border. Good morning and welcome to Racing Across America on this Sunday morning, the day after the second jewel of the Triple Crown. A fabulous Preakness yesterday. I mean, one of the best performances I've ever seen, to be honest. And we'll hit on that and more this morning. Nice under as well. It was a fun weekend at Pimlico after they got past the storm on Friday, and we'll talk about all of that in just a minute. But before that, do want to thank everybody who showed up yesterday at the Clubhouse Racebook. Preakness bankroll worked out very nicely. Started with 500. We ended up with a little over 1,000. So everybody walked away with a little over $50, and turned out to be a nice day for the bankroll team. We had a lot of fun. Nice little crowd down here. So again, we appreciate everybody who came down and visited with us on Preakness Day here at the Clubhouse Racebook. But down in Pimlico, who else to reach out to after a big day than our friend Steve Byk, boots on the ground down in Pimlico at the radio show all week. Steve, good morning.
Seth, good morning. Well done on the bankroll, king of the bankroll.
I appreciate that. Yeah, it was a fun day. We hit the 8th race. The Chick Lang was a particularly good race for us, and then we hit some other scores along the day. So yeah, it was a lot of fun over the weekend. And before we get to this weekend, Nashville for you last weekend, how'd that turn out?
Oh, it was fabulous. Other than snap decision, not that it was bad that snap decision got beat, but he was going for his fourth in 5 years, and he was with a win. He would have become the winningest steeplechaser ever. That'll have to wait. One of the interesting parts of last week, of course, was that winner, a band, that at least for a week was kind of nice for Eclipse. Journalism gets beat in the Derby, then they win the Grade 1 Iroquois, and now here they are a week later winning the Grade 1 and the second leg of the Triple Crown with the Preakness. So Eclipse has been in the headlines week after week, and they deserve it.
Yeah, because of the age, we're not going to get to see Snap Decision up here at Saratoga, but just a phenomenal horse. He's on the steeplechase side of things. He's been a nice story for the past few years. But let's shift now to the thoroughbreds. You were there all week long, Pimlico, setting things up. And before we get into specific races, I always like to have you kind of set up the weekend and what was it like down at Pimlico. It seemed like it's a story of, two different, what a difference a day makes. But Friday, the torrential kind of biblical proportion storm, it looked like, that delayed the start of the Black Eyed Susan. Yesterday, it looked like a gorgeous day, at least visually on television.
Yeah, it was a gorgeous day, visually and in reality.
Perfect.
The week was really interesting, and it was very emotional. As much as it's necessary that they built a new Pimlico, at least personally, they've got such affection for the building. It was just weird, knowing that it was going to be the last time, and I think it made a lot of people very nostalgic. And on Fridays, for those who listen to the radio show, I'm sure you know what I mean. I had Karen DeFrancis to end the show and end the week. Her father, Frank DeFrancis, owned the tracks through the 80s and into the 90s. And Karen stayed on and ran the Preakness show for many years until the Belinda Stronach team took over, essentially. And she, I thought, really summed up everything about Pimlico beautifully. There's going to be a bright new future, but there's a lot of memories that people took away leading up to yesterday and then leaving the building yesterday. And everything worked out. It just could not have been better. It's capped by as exciting a race as anybody is going to see, and as remarkable a performance as you're going to get from a 3-year-old thoroughbred.
Yeah, and let's jump right into it. That's the perfect segue. Preakness yesterday. We'll watch the entire race here, and as they get to the top of the stretch, keep your eyes on number 2 Journalism, who gets like an accordion. He is in between and gets squeezed as bad as you can get squeezed and keep going in a race. I felt like around the turn, he just was in kind of a jackpot that it was going to be tough to get out of, and Gosker had opened up by then. And so to me, the race was over before he got squeezed. And then he got squeezed, and I said, well, he's done. And then he gets going again and wins the race. And again, to me, that was one of the best performances, if not the best I've ever seen with a situation like that. And a lot of people were talking about a Fleet Alex yesterday, and I went back and pulled up a replay, and that was phenomenal too. But I think yesterday surpassed that with Journalism. It was just it was one for the ages, certainly. And now we don't have a Triple Crown on the line, but I think the rematch up here potentially at Saratoga might be just as exciting. But give us your thoughts on the Preakness yesterday.
Well, Alberto Rispoli essentially, found himself in another difficult position, and you can understand the need. Coming from the 2 holes, you figure there's going to be speed out in front, and let me save as much ground as I can, and that's fine. But at the same time, with the even money favorite, which ended up frankly being a surprise, I thought he'd be 4 to 5 or even a tick under that. Even money was a value. He put himself in a potentially compromising position. And, there's a lot of people that are arguing both ways, that he forced himself into a spot that didn't exist. And then there's the other view of it, which is that Flavian Pratt was taking liberties by trying to keep him pinned in on the rail. I'm going to split the baby here. I tweeted earlier this morning, there's a very famous old adage. Anybody that follows NASCAR will know the expression, rubbing is racing. And neither Rispoli nor Pratt are at fault here. They were both doing things that were easily understandable from a rider perspective. There was enough of a seam for Rispoli to go for, and there was every reasonable expectation that Pratt would hold his line as well. I don't think anybody's at fault for anything that happened at that point. And I don't care that essentially Journalism, hits goal-oriented in the hind end and turns him sideways. I don't care that he pulls his way through. That was a remarkable thing for a 3-year-old colt to do. And to then, once he emerged from between horses, now he switches lead and lunges forward to go catch Gosker. And I know Brendan Walsh said, that he thought that the horse got to idling and that Gosker was relaxing in the stretch. He wasn't relaxing at all. Luis Saez was plenty busy on Gosker. Journalism, for him to go nail him out in space like that is incredibly unusual. This is an exceptional horse. And I got to tell you, I was very respectful of Sovereignty's win at Churchill 2 weeks ago, and I still am. But boy, I really would have liked to have seen the 2 of them on a dry, fast track. And hopefully that's what we get at Saratoga, because I think this is a better horse, the best horse of the division. So we'll go forward here. But this was as great a way to bring the curtain down on Old Pimlico, the Pimlico as we know it. You could not have had a better ending.
Totally agree. And I'm just looking on Twitter, wound up with a 98 buyer in here to Journalism. But I agree with your assessment. As I was reading on social media last night, criticism of one jockey or the other. I was kind of where you are in that I get the criticism, but I think they were race riding in one of the biggest races on the American racing calendar, and I had no problem either. And I will say, middle of the race, there was an overhead shot, and it looked like Rispoli kind of, for a moment, thought, I'm going to go outside. And he kind of made a slight move to go out, but he was going to have to be 4 or 5 wide around the turn, and he thought better of it and went back inside. But the way it played out was just incredible. As I say, one of the more incredible performances I've seen in my entire career watching horse races, to run down that loose on the lead leader after that kind of trouble early in the stretch. And I'm just curious, what was the reaction? I was smiling when Rispoli came back and kind of brought the horse up the stretch a ways and let the crowd kind of soak it all in.
Oh, yeah. Listen, and you mentioned the Fleet Alex, and I can tell you, we were doing the queue that year, and I recall, that by that time in the day, we were pretty much done. And having a food service pass at the time, I was able to go right up to the fence, right at the top of the stretch, and it happened literally, in front of me. And you mentioned earlier, that's what people are recalling, and rightly so. But that was a little different too, because they were up, Scrappy T and the Fleet Alex were, up on the lead, and whoever was going to emerge from there, was going to be your winner, and it ended up being a Fleet Alex scampering away. The crowd reaction was perfect. It was, you got that sort of breathless expression of when they all came together, and the 3 horses across the track, and then once there was the incident, then there's the matter of, well, let's see what happens now. And it became, at least to me, pretty clear that he was going to run Gosger down. And so it really, there was this big expression of emotion and wows, and then everybody kind of refocused, and we're like, oh my God, how did he win? And so, yeah, it was perfect. And the day ended up being, sun washed and just perfect.
Yeah.
You could not have walked out of there, in a better mood. I know some people that said Gosger, they weren't too happy, and Brendan Walsh got nailed at the wire 2 days in a row. I don't think I realize that people know that he got beat in the Black Eyed Susan at the wire. So tough couple of days for Brendan, but everybody else, I think, walked away just delighted and with what we saw.
Yeah, and as they say, it sets up potentially a nice Belmont Stakes up here at Saratoga with a rematch. I was a little stat from Dave Grenig's follow-up article in the Racing Forum going back to 1961. This was the 4th Derby runner-up that has won the Preakness. 45 runners-up have tried it since 1961, but the 4th to get it done. So, and yeah, I was a little bit surprised at the price too. The even money was decent value, because I was expecting this one to go down, and it looked during the day like that was how it was going to shake out, 4 to 5 or 3 to 5. But the even money, if you took even money at top of the stretch, you weren't feeling too good. But you wound up collecting at $4 even there. So, yeah, good value on the horse.
Yeah, they're from that standpoint, from a betting standpoint, it was actually a fascinating couple of days, because you had some crazy prices that were interspersed with some very logical results. And it's funny, both days I kind of caught waves late, the late pick 5 and the late pick 4 on Friday for 3,000, and the late pick 4 and late pick 5 yesterday for about 550. And frankly, when you look at the prices of the winners in those late races, none of them were very hard to come up with.
Yeah.
I suppose Awesome Aaron in the Pimlico Special was the toughest horse, the North Cassidy winner. Callie Francois picked him and gave him out on the show with me on Wednesday. But other than that, a lot of the late multi-race wagers were very happable, and the 20-cent force out pick six yesterday again was very happable, and it paid like $2,300.
Yeah.
So there were worthwhile mutuals no matter what you did. And then, like you mentioned, Cherie and Retribution was a good priced winner. I thought that Charlene Green in the Gallerette, Rispoli, people may have not noticed that Rispoli had won earlier for Ed Mosier. Charlene Green, that was a real heads-up ride on the front end. The turf course, you needed to be pretty much up on the front end, which is not unusual on a wettish turf course. And a turf course with the they were calling it firm at even good, which is a little silly. There's no way that turf was good with a liberal interpretation of what that turf course was. But I think it was just two wonderful days, Seth, every which way. The Orioles game on Friday night, the Orioles had invited all the principals. Michael McCarthy threw out the first pitch. I sent the picture. That was kind of fun. And the whole, let's see who came. Jamie Osborne came, as a matter of fact, with his daughter. And Mark Caffey and Tina were there for Sandman. And, I think there were four sets of connections that came to the game. That was great. It just Baltimore is such a wonderful host, and the relaxed atmosphere of this race compared to the Derby. The Derby is a much more tense environment than Preakness. Preakness is a real party scene and a real nation break after Kentucky.
Yeah, and it seems that way. Everybody kind of raves about the hospitality that they get down there, the connections down at Pimlico, and with the folks in Maryland, and it just seems like it is a kind of a different type of an atmosphere, certainly. Let's talk about a couple other races. One of them that worked out for me was the dinner party right before the Preakness. It was Fort Washington. I had that one on top, and 5-1 on the morning line, which I thought was generous, and held at that. So nice $12 winner for Shug Junior Alvarado on board. Fort Washington in here is the number 10, cash equity second. Desvizio runs third as the rank outsider. The favorite was Tricari, however, at 7-2. A little bit disappointing. Had an outside post position to overcome, but winds up ninth in the field of 10. But it was a nice win in the dinner party from Fort Washington.
Well, I would say that Neat Neat was even more problematic, and I'd like to get a report from Rob Adris on if he's okay. Tricari really didn't seem to fire and had no excuse. But Fort Washington made a lot of sense for Shug and ran great. There's not a he looked a winner all the way around. I mean, sitting relaxed early and started to make progress, and so it was pretty obvious.
In the Murphy, you mentioned this a little bit earlier, a mile on the turf. The early turf races had some of those crazy results. And also it seemed like if you were on the front end in the early turf races, that was the place to be. That switched up a little bit, and Reagan's Wit was one of those horses that came from a little bit behind late in the Murphy, going a mile on the grass. As the 50 cent to the dollar favorite went off at 1-2. Reagan's Wit's going to be the number 7 in here, getting it done. And Cherie DeVoe continues on what has been a nice run for her over the past, year or so, really.
Yeah, well, even longer. This was one of those races where you say to yourself, let's try to find somebody in case Reagan's Wit misfires. He ends up just demolishing this field. And Cherie is sitting in a great spot. I mean, between She Feels Pretty 2 weeks ago at Churchill and now with Reagan's Wit, continuing to fire. Yeah, I thought the big news actually was the dirt stake winner for $20, Retribution.
Yeah, absolutely. Which again was part of the nice day with the bankroll. Another part of the nice day with the bankroll, the Sir Barton. And typically on the Preakness card, it's for 3-year-olds that are kind of late bloomers or horses that need to get a little confidence boost back again. And I put Invictus on top, but when I was playing the bankroll yesterday, I said, I'm not going to make any money with Invictus. And I don't think coming out of a maiden breaker, Invictus is necessarily invincible. But, the betting public made that one 1-2. So I played around with a couple of the other horses I had right underneath, and Crudo gets it done. The number 1 horse, Just a Fair Shake. The number 9 runs second. So wound up a nice little exacta hit in that race. But the Pletcher runner may be a force to reckon with on the 3-year-old side of things as the year progresses. For Bobby Flay and Todd Pletcher, John Velasquez on board here. And we can see the chart margin winds up to be just under 8 lengths for Crudo in the Sir Barton.
Well, it's for Bobby Flay and Jimmy Ventura, who I sent the picture of. Jimmy at the chalet with his arms outstretched. They're partners on that horse, and he really, really ran. He was an obvious consideration. Invictus is a joke. He's an absolute stiff. And we talked all during the week that this was a horse you could not trust. I thought the fun horse in here was Just a Fair Shake.
Yeah.
And he ran very well at 6-1, but it didn't matter. Crudo just kept going and it just ran away from them in the stretch. He set a solid set of fractions, and I thought, here's Just a Fair Shake. Just to come and get him, and ranged up and was less than the done. So this is a serious horse.
Yeah, I'd be interested to see, as they say, as the year progresses, what they're going to do going into the summer. Obviously, I think they have a nice little 3-year-old on their hands there. This was one that stymied me a little bit, I will admit, but I looked at your picks earlier, and you were on Whitty in the turf sprint. I was not. I didn't have a real argument against. I have liked Whitty throughout the career. I just wasn't necessarily thrilled yesterday. But I will admit I whiffed on Coppola, who I've been on the past few starts, and that one's just going in the wrong direction the last 2 or 3 starts. Coppola yesterday winds up 4th as the 2-1 favorite. But Whitty, the second choice at 5-2, gets it done. Whitty was, 10-1 on the morning line, but immediately was taking a lot of action. So with the bankroll yesterday, looking up at the action, and again, having liked this horse through much of the career, I tossed a little backup money on Whitty. But as I say, you had that one on top, and Whitty gets it done for Elizabeth Merriman in the Maryland Turf Sprint. Flavian Prat on board, going to be the number 4 horse here. And again, changed up the scenario from earlier in the day where it looked like you had to be on the front end on the turf. Whitty comes from way out of it, gets it done over Nonay Hudson for Wesley Ward. But nice performance yesterday by Whitty.
Well, the reason to like Whitty was basically soft turf is right up his alley. Yeah. You knew he was going to get a pace set up, and I was even surprised. I didn't think the 10-1. People are going to say, "Well, that was a bad morning line." I don't know if it was a bad morning line when you looked at the field, and I was surprised how much money he took. And you're right, he opened up short and stayed. He basically stayed there. And I think that part of that is just knowing that he's a bit of a 5-furlong specialist, and Lizzie Merriman. It's a real nice local scenario, and Whitty was a lot of fun. Sibling ran on Friday in that. Actually, he did not run Friday. That was the race that got canceled. Actually, 3-1. Yeah, he ended up at 3-1, and Coppola ended up going favorite.
Yeah, and as they say, that one seems to be going in the wrong direction a little bit. Chick Lang, we mentioned this already a couple of times. As I say, this was the one that got the bankroll kicking yesterday with a similar scenario as Invictus. I had 1,900 on top, but 7-2 on the morning line, and I wasn't sure which way that one would go coming out of a maiden special and being lightly raced. But again, had that one on top, the horses I had underneath, I thought were all logical and prices. And so I played around in here and hit the triple for $1 for $4.50, had the exacta number of times. The exacta for $1 was $70. But again, I put 1,900 in the mix, obviously, but right underneath I had the 10, 11, and 3, and it comes out Retribution on top, number 11 at 9-1, Touchy number 10 at 9-1 runs second in here, and running third is Ancient World at 9-2. So it wound up to be a nice triple and nice exacta in here with a couple of logical horses, and 1,900, who did go off as the 2-1 favorite, winds up fifth, stepping out of Maiden Special Company. And it was a nice win last time. But again, it's a big ask, but it was a nice result yesterday in the Chick Lang. And again, another Cherie Deveau runner, Retribution, gets it done.
Oh, nice work. I absolutely leaning on Dale Roman on that turn back to keep it easy, and he stunk. He was awful. So I got nothing to offer here. I had top three were I wasn't even close.
And just before we can pop over and hit on the Black Eyed Susan in a minute. Anything else on yesterday? The Gallarette, it was Charlene's Dream. Zeitlos looked good. Another sprinter from Steve Asmussen. Zeitlos gets it done, and Booth also on the sprint side. The female sprint side was on the ski pat, but Booth looking pretty. Booth with Eric Asmussen was interesting as well, because it was mentioned on the telecast, and I went and looked. Eric Asmussen had been on a horse for his father the night before, 10:30 the night before down at Lone Star. So makes the quick turnaround, comes back to Pimlico and gets it done on Booth. And Booth definitely is a sprinter to watch. Now has won the last three stakes down at Oak Lawn, leading into the win yesterday in the Maryland Sprint.
Yeah, that was nice. In fact, Dean and I walked before the Preakness. We walked over to the steak barn, and Steve was waiting, to bring Clever again over. They congratulated him, and he was pretty pleased about Eric. And that is not unusual. The Asmussen plan about as hardworking as any family in the game, and I've made the remark many times. He'll turn on whatever, any Lone Star, Remington, Britannia Park on a Thursday night, and there's Steve Asmussen at 10:30 at night on the shank, literally, walking a horse over for a mundane maiden race, in Oklahoma. He's so typical of the family and how they approach their jobs and how just imbued they are in the game. So both Zeitlos and Booth out of yesterday. Look forward to talk. I'm sure Steve was disappointed with Clever again, who came into the Preakness with a look. And before we move to Friday, one thing we should mention, Seth, and one thing we should remember for next year, for those that played the Preakness future wager, they got journalism at 5-1.
I didn't even, $12. I did not even look at that, but now that you mentioned, $12 and change. Wow. How did that happen?
Right?
Yeah, that's crazy.
And absolutely nuts.
Yeah, it is absolutely. Now I'm going to have to go back and look at the entire odds, how that shook out. Do you know, was he favored?
I got it right here, actually, because, I carry stuff like this around for weeks on end, like an idiot. He was favored at 5-1.
That's crazy. All right. I did not, because it closed on Derby Day, like 2 hours before the Derby. So to be honest, I didn't even really look. But that's wild. That is absolutely wild. All right, now let's shift over to Friday, the Black Eyed Susan. I saw on your website, on your selections, you and I were in the same place. I made this one a play of the day, Margie's Intention. Got 5-2 as the favorite. I wasn't sure which way this one was going to go. It was actually the second choice on the morning line at 3-1. But now in the Brad Cox barn, Margie's Intention gets the Black Eyed Susan win for win number 3 in start number 6. So you would think this one will be aimed at some of the nice 3-year-old filly races as the year progresses. Your thoughts from the Black Eyed Susan?
Well, as I mentioned, the story of the weekend, to some degree, is Brendan Walsh getting beat at the wire in both races. Paris Lily also looked like she was home free, and here comes Margie's Intention and Flavia Pratt. They come storming down that sloppy stretch. It's unbelievable.
Yeah.
And this story, this is a horse that Louisiana bred, was banging, knocking out performances against Louisiana breds, and pretty savvy by the team that plucked this one out. And Brad didn't have her really all that long. But they obviously saw that she was capable of this. I think I probably took a slight step forward. I mean, I think the figure only came back at 81. So I'm sure there's people who think there's some Brad Cox magic involved. There's no Brad Cox magic. They found a horse that was eligible to compete at this level, and I got a feeling that the wet track was to her liking. But boy, I feel bad for Brendan Walsh.
You would think you come away a couple of days like that with a couple of nice second place finishes, you feel pretty good. But to have them play out the way they did, that certainly is rough. A little bit earlier on the card, the Pimlico Special. You mentioned earlier, Awesome Aaron. I didn't know what to do with that horse. It was kind of down at the bottom of my mix. I thought Encino looked good. Encino took some action at 7-2, but winds up 7th after having led early in the race. But Awesome Aaron gets it done with a nice late run at 7-1 for Norm Cassie. And there was the video out on Twitter of his wife Gabby sitting on the set for FanDuel rooting this one home, and that was kind of fun to watch. But nice win here from Awesome Aaron in the Pimlico Special.
Well, this was a terrific. You go back to last September. This was a tremendous claim, and Norm is nice work. This horse has improved steadily, and then that performance at Oaklawn before this, when he registered the triple-digit buyer, that performance really earmarked him as a serious up-and-comer in the division. And here's a 6-year-old gelding. Norm has really improved him in the last 8 months. So I thought he and the other Brad Cox runner, those I thought were the two that Star of Wonder. I thought those were the two most logical performers. Phileas Fogg, Gustavo Rodriguez has done well with him. Those were really the 3 horses to work off of. As I mentioned, Callie really helped me kind of push toward Awesome Aaron, because she loved him in there, and ends up being the key to any good late result on Friday. Kind of came through Awesome Aaron, who paid $16.
Any other thoughts on the Friday races? The very one, it was Maserati with from Brittany Russell getting it done at 5-1 or 5-2. The Miss Preakness, another one of my plays of the day, the dark horse play today on Friday was Echo Sound. I like that horse. Pretty happy with just under $10 on that one. Luis Saez on board for Rusty Arnold in the Miss Preakness. The Hilltop. Brendan Walsh did get a win in the Hilltop, number 2 play with fire for Flavian Prat. And Candied. I wasn't sure what to do with Candied. I used Candied on top, but I wasn't. I said I was kind of tepid there, but Candied looked pretty good getting it done in the DuPont distaff for Pletcher and Irod Ortiz.
Well, what's interesting about Candied's performance, Todd made it pretty clear in recent weeks, is that she wasn't necessarily focusing on that spot. This basically was a tune-up for Saratoga for the Ogden 5th. So they've got to be very pleased. And of course, this is also a set of connections that did well on Saturday, because it's the partnership of Bobby Flay, who with Jimmy Ventura, won with Crudo, won the Sir Barton, and Eclipse that won the Preakness. So there was a lot of harmony between the 2 days.
And you mentioned Brad Cox, and I was trying to look here on Twitter because I don't remember what horse it was now. But did you see the picture on Twitter where he had a horse that he didn't want to give to the pony? And so during the post parade, Brad was out on the track with the shank, walking the horse along until he let the horse go to warm up. That was kind of an interesting photo to see. I don't know whether I've ever seen a trainer out on the track doing that, but Brad was right out on the track with the horse.
I did not see that.
Yeah, it was interesting. As I say, I'm trying to look to see what horse it was. I'm pretty sure it was yesterday. Had one of those that was maybe a little worked up, and so he was trying to keep the horse calm. But Steve, we'll let you go. You're on the way home, so travel safe. And again, say hello to Tina for me. We said hello a little bit earlier during the commercial break, but as always, appreciate the visit. The boots on the ground, and great work again down at Pimlico, and as always throughout the Triple Crown season. And sooner rather than later, we'll be firing it up live from Saratoga.
It'll be live. Are we doing anything on TV down the week?
Yeah. It's Sunday. Loose on the lead.
All right. Well, and I'll be broadcasting from the track all week.
And looking forward to that as well. But get home safe and take a couple of weeks for a breather, radio from home. But we're looking forward to heading up the Turnpike, heading up the Northway to Saratoga again sooner rather than later. And hopefully we'll get a decision and we'll know journalism, yes or no. And hopefully it's a yes, because I think if it is a yes, I think Belmont Day is going to be very special.
Well, I can tell you, I don't know if you put the picture up, but I sent you those pictures from 8 o'clock this morning. The horse, 100% bright, alert, hipping, ears up. He absolutely could not have looked better coming out of the race. And, much like the way they handle things out of Derby, what's going to happen is Michael McCarthy is staying again tonight instead of going back. They'll watch him, and they'll basically buy some time to figure out about shipping arrangements up to Saratoga. Michael's going to probably send, one of the groom and one of his assistants. Michael's also sending several other horses from California. So he'll probably establish, a small string, probably 5 or 6 horses up at the Oklahoma,
nice.
And they'll basically watch him up there for the next, I would say, week to 10 days. I would expect that they would run everything Aaron Wellman said this morning as well. I'll have Aaron and Michael on tomorrow on the show. But not only is there an expectation, there's an eagerness, frankly, to come back and run. And, one thing we should close this out with, Seth, for all of the seat snatching and all of the hand wringing and all of the sky is falling about the Triple Crown, you had 3 horses run back out of the Derby, and 2 of them finished first and third. So let's put away the whole Triple Crown has to be changed nonsense, because that's what it is. It's nonsense. And every likelihood is that you're going to have horses out of the Derby and Preakness be a big part of the Exacta Tri-Super at the Belmont. And we should remember all of this when we get, a scenario next May that people are all concerned about what where the Triple Crown is and what the future is. The future is the same as the past. Just leave it alone.
Yeah, as I say, looking forward to the Belmont this year, right up here at Saratoga again. Should be a lot of fun, no question about it. Steve, again, appreciate the visit. As I say, travel safe, and we'll talk again.
I hope.
Very good. Steve Byk, again, great coverage, first couple of legs of the Triple Crown down in Louisville. Then, as we alluded to, took a little side trip for the big jump race in Nashville. This week down in the Baltimore area covering Preakness as well. All right, we'll take a quick break. When we come back, we'll do, I have the dark horse play of the day. We'll take a look at some of the other action as well. So stay tuned.
Want to get your career in horse racing off to a fast start? Well, the University of Arizona's Racetrack Industry Program is your winning ticket. The Racetrack Industry Program has served as a springboard to some of the industry's most successful individuals, with a proven track record of job placement right out of college. If you want to earn a degree in the exciting horse racing industry, the Racetrack Industry Program can put you in the winner's circle.
Sometimes it pays to go with the flow, to check your worries at the door, to reconnect with your crew, to follow the thrills and the flavor, to roll with it and see where it takes you, to enjoy every minute to its fullest, and to dance like there's no tomorrow. You can do that here at Rivers Casino and Resort Schenectady, where the good times flow.
Welcome back to Racing Across America on this Sunday morning. Seth Merrow in the studio. Thanks for joining us. Thanks again to Steve Byk, who's on his way home from Pimlico. Thanks for taking the time to do a little recap. He's been down there all week. And, yeah, boy, it looked like really a story of what a difference a day makes. Friday down there was a mess. And Friday they had the delay for the black-eyed Sue, over an hour, I think, because a huge storm came through. Twitter, you could see people Friday afternoon tweeted out the radar picture, which looked, lots of red and yellow kind of moving across the Baltimore area. And so they had the delay, ran the Black-Eyed Susan, canceled the last race on the card. There was a race scheduled after the Black-Eyed Susan. But then yesterday, it looked gorgeous. The turf course was not playing. The turf course was playing like it got a lot of rain on Friday, which it did. And early on, it was favoring front runners, but that changed as the day went along, and it just could have been that was the way it worked out earlier. But 2 nice days of racing down there at Pimlico. And like Derby weekend, some satisfying results that will play out in the various divisions as we go along this year. Going to be interesting to see what Crudo does on the 3-year-old side of things. Booth will continue to be a serious player in that handicap division, and likely see plenty of those horses that we saw the past couple of days down at Pimlico right up the Northway at Saratoga this season. All right, let me take a look at the dark horse play today. And I looked earlier and I didn't see any scratches, so hope we're still on the turf. I would expect we're still on the turf. I looked at the weather, and I think in the New York area they were fine. As I came into work today, there was a light sprinkle here, but so we'll keep our fingers crossed because we have a turf event here in the 6th, Belmont. I have a 2, 9, 4, and 6. The 12 is also a little bit interesting. The 12 is on the AE list, but if that one scratches in for Shug, watch out for the 12. But I put number 2 on top as the dark horse play of the day. Todd Pletcher, trainee by Frankel, debuted last September at Belmont at Aqueduct and ran an okay fourth. And this is the kind that I say, lightly raced. Now, this is a 4-year-old, so got a late start, but I always say 2-year-olds or lightly raced 3-year-olds, they get a little break, they come back, they can show some nice improvement. This one comes back with a first-time gelding symbol off again, a decent little debut that I think can be productive to move forward from. It's always tough to debut at 1 1/8, and it's tough to make the comeback in only the second start at 1 3/16. But we'll hope we get a little value. Irod Ortiz is on board. This one had been training down at Palm Beach Downs for Todd Pletcher until late April. Subsequently, has had a workout right up here at Saratoga. So we'll see. It may be one where we'll need a start or two to get back into or to get into top form. But I'll take a shot and hope we get a little bit of value here on this situation. Dark horse play today. Race number 6, Belmont at the Big A on the turf. Horse number 2, Gun Barrel City, brought to you by the Dark Horse Mercantile and Impressions of Saratoga, right in downtown Saratoga Springs. Appreciate their sponsorship of the Dark Horse play during the Triple Crown season. Underneath that one, and I'll go on and I'll handicap here because we have some time, this late pick 4 down in New York. Number 9 is Royals Pride. Similar to the top pick, and it's the second start of the career off a little bit of a layoff, but top pick first start was last September. This one, middle of March, so not quite as much of a layoff. Has a start already this season down at Tampa, but similar to the top pick in that the first start of the career was okay, wasn't spectacular, but looks like a productive start to build on by Dubawi. It's Bill Mott. You would think this horse has the eligibility to, as I say, improve with the experience on the resume now. So put Royals Pride in the second spot, Van Ginkel in the third spot, Chad Brown trainee. Nice improvement, start 1 to start 2. That was a move from dirt to turf as well. So I think this one is also logical. Mayor of Midnight, another Chad Brown runner. Similar to the top 2, comes off a good debut effort to build on. And as I said, if there's a scratch and Wonderfin gets in for a Shug, I think that horse can be a player as well. A little more experience than the others I've talked about. And third start back now this season. If the 12 sneaks in, it could be dangerous. All right, so sixth race, Belmont at the Big A. Dark horse play of the day is the number 2, but overall 2, 9, 4, and 6. And if the 12 sneaks in, take a look. Seventh race, Belmont at the Big A. And again, when I looked earlier, scratches weren't up yet, so double check on that. But the 7th at Belmont at the Big A, state bred allowance runners going 7, 2, 3, 1, and 5. Number 2, Attorney Wade. Turf last time and ran okay number-wise, but the finishing position wasn't great. 2 starts back, though, was on the dirt and a nice maiden breaker on the dirt. So the return to dirt may be the key here. Kendrick Carmouche jumps on board. He was at Pimlico, I think, Friday. He went down to Baltimore, I know, for some ride or a couple of rides, but back in New York today. Uncle George in the second spot. Had a little win streak snapped, a brief, 2-race win streak snapped last time. Lane Luzzy was on board for both of the victories, not on board last time. He gets back on board again today. So he has shown a nice affinity with the horse. That may help a little bit. And the question mark here will be the class move. I think is maybe heading into some saltier company today, but that race 2 back puts him right in the mix. Ball Don't Lie in the third spot. Coming in from Southern California and moving into the Rob Atras barn, Irod Ortiz on board. The start earlier this year left me scratching my head a little bit. The starts before that, going back to earlier in 2024 last year, they were all good enough that this horse runs away with this, runs away from this field and makes it look easy. And that may be the case. But off the last race, I was just a little bit concerned. Now, did have a 5-pound apprentice on board that day. Gets Irod Ortiz today. Moving from open company, including a second place in a stake out in Southern California, moving from that open company in against New York breds. So there are things to like. There are things to really like about Ball Don't Lie. But again, that last race, I was willing to push down a little bit. I may regret that. This horse, as I say, might just lay over this bunch. But for me in the 7th, Belmont at the Big A, 2, 3, 1, and 5. The 8th race today, they're on the grass. State bred non-owners of 1, 4, 12, 10, and 1. Leo's Reward. Manny Franco on board for Dave Donk. 1 turf try so far. The rest of the races in the 7-race career have been on the dirt. All of the races have been pretty good. 3rd place finish when moved to the turf last time. Has put in a bullet work since, with the turf experience under the belt now and a little bit of a stretch out today. I think this horse could be interesting at a little bit of a price. 2nd spot, Rhetorical. Will Walden, runner with Irod Ortiz on board. Off 2 good starts last summer up at Saratoga. So a little bit of a layoff. Another one of those lightly raced, gets a little bit of a layoff and comes back. Wouldn't be shocked to come back improved. And I might have put this horse on top and, yeah, is the morning line favorite. But at 2 turns on the grass, being out in the 12, I was a little bit concerned about the post position. Charles J. Also has a post position to overcome in the seasonal debut, but Flavian Prat on board, coming off a maiden breaker at the end of the season for this one. Last year, it was back in October. So again, we'll see if we can overcome that. Been training down at Keeneland, though, and comes to New York to face his own kind, the New York Breds. 8th, Belmont at the Big A, 4, 12, 10, and 1. And we'll wrap it up today, Belmont at the Big A in race number 9, which will go off at about 5:16. And again, I haven't looked up the scratches. Let me just see if I can maybe quickly pull up. So I'm assuming still on the grass, but I'll see here if I can quickly get an update, because we're getting, usually by about 11 o'clock, scratches and changes typically kind of come out. And so we may be getting close to that. When I looked earlier, I didn't see any changes, but I'll see if updated at 10:53. And yeah, turf races are all on. Turf races are both listed as firm at this point. Fast and firm down there. Belmont at the Big A on this Sunday. So this 9th race on the grass, 2, 7, 10, and 12. Battle Drum on top for Todd Pletcher. A couple of starts so far this year down at Gulfstream. They were both in maiden special company. And number-wise, they were both good enough to mix it up with this bunch. You toss in the maiden special weight to maiden claiming move. Could be potent in here. Irod Ortiz on board. Air Rate in the 2nd spot off of Acclaim 2-back. Moved into the Linda Rice barn. Moved up the claiming ladder off the claim, but back to levels this horse had been at before. Claim for 20, moved up to 50, but had run for 50 before. Ran an okay 3rd last time. Back in for the 50 tag today. Tries turf for the first time, but has some synthetic starts at Turfway. They aren't great, but I'll trust Linda Rice to maybe make a clever move here. Air Rate looks playable and sounds like fun. Comes in also trying some turf in here. Does have 1 turf start right at the beginning of the career, however. The last couple of starts maybe show some improving form going forward, and seems to appreciate the 50 level as well. So in the 9th and final, Belmont at the Big A, 2, 7, 10, and 12. All right, that'll wrap it up. I will give you a little update on what's coming up via promos over the next week or so. But again, thanks to everybody who showed up yesterday for the Preakness Day bankroll. Preakness Syndicate also made a little bit of money yesterday, or cashed some tickets anyway yesterday. But the bankroll had a nice crowd in here. Folks put their name in the hat early in the day, and we picked a team of 20 at about 2 o'clock. I started playing at about 1, went to about 5, and had a couple of nice hits on the day. That Chick Lang with the $450 triple. We had the $70 exact I had $4 on, so we had $280 there. So cleared about 700 and some in that Chick Lang, and then just kind of chunked in a couple other $100 hits and whatnot. So we wound up with a little over $1,000. Everybody wound up with $53 and change. So it's free money. You come in, you have a fun afternoon. You're playing the Preakness card yourself. Maybe grab a little lunch at Black Bear, and at the end of the day, hey, here's $53, courtesy of Capital OTB. So again, it was a fun afternoon for the bankroll and the bankroll team, and appreciate everybody here who participated and came up to the desk at the front of the room where I was playing and offered up words of encouragement and whatnot. So again, appreciate it. And we'll do it again on Friday. It's a happy hour bankroll, a little smaller bankroll, but the bankrolls have been going well the past 3 months or so. Been making some money for the team. We'll do it again on Friday with a happy hour bankroll right here at the Clubhouse Racebook. That's on Friday. Come in early, put your name in the hat. We select a team. I play throughout the afternoon, split up the winnings at the end of the day. Saturday, a week from yesterday, King of the Hill contest. There was a winner yesterday, so congratulations to the King of the Hill winner from yesterday. So again, end of the week, a couple of fun promos coming up again. Here at Capital OTB, you can always keep up with the promos and events via Capital OTB Bet. Click on the promotions link, and there you go. You'll see what the promotions are. Pull up the monthly calendar, and you can see all the promotions and events as well. All right, I'm going to wrap it up. But again, today we have a little Belmont at the Big A in the mix, and they'll kick off 1:10. We also have some Churchill in the mix. They'll kick off at about 12:45. I'll look at both of them this afternoon. We'll have some other action, of course, including, I'm just looking, Saratoga Harness will be in the mix. And I believe a little Monmouth as well. So it should be a fun afternoon, fun Sunday afternoon. Looking forward to it. Kind of winding down after a couple of big days, focusing on Black Eyed Susan and Preakness. And we'll wind down for a little bit, then we'll wind back up because, again, should journalism, we'll keep our fingers crossed, should journalism come out okay and they elect to go up here at Saratoga for the Belmont Stakes, a rematch between sovereignty and journalism. It's not a triple crown, but it's the next best thing. I think a lot of people will be excited, not to mention the undercard is potentially shaping up nicely. The Met Mile looks like it's going to be a monster, so should be a big weekend. And again, we're 3 weeks out, and it's only going to ramp up from here. So again, take the little post-Preakness breather, make the most of it, cash some tickets, get a little bankroll because it's going to be special up here as it was last year. But again, the rematch may ramp things up a little bit. All right, going to wrap it up for Racing Across America on this Sunday morning. But again, be back in about an hour and a half or so for OTB Live for a Sunday afternoon. See you then. We'd like to thank Woodbine for their sponsorship of this program and some of the other programming and events here at Capital OTB. Woodbine open now through December, featuring great racing, including the King's Plate coming up in August, Turf Champions Day with the Woodbine Mile in September, and much, much more. Woodbine Racing, great racing north of the border.
You're watching OTB TV, a service of Capital Offtrack Betting.